There is an undeniable reality that if Donald Trump follows through with the campaign promise of dismantling Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it is going to be a disaster for not just millions of people, but millions of Trump voters. And then the question becomes, will Trump voters hold Trump accountable for taking away their health insurance? But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's sort of talk through it. Donald Trump campaigned very aggressively. He campaigned big league or big Lee, whichever you prefer, on repealing the Affordable Care Act. However, then after becoming the president-elect, he met with President Obama, came out of that meeting and said, you know what, there are some Obamacare provisions that I like very much. But let's consider that he has put together a very anti-Obamacare set of advisors and cabinet members. I told you last week about Donald Trump selecting Tom Price to lead the Health and Human Services Department, Secretary of Health and Human Services. He is a major anti-Obamacare guy who, to his credit, at least authored something that is a replacement for Obamacare called the Empowering Patients First Act. It's a disaster, but at least it's something. And whatever ends up taking the place of Obamacare will cover fewer people. And economist Paul Krugman wrote about this. How many people might end up losing coverage because of their election of Donald Trump? The initial answer from Paul Krugman is that somewhere between 3.5 million and 4 million Trump voters would likely lose health insurance if Donald Trump indeed does what he promised to do. Greg Sargent from the Washington Post has also written about this, and he said, quote, I have obtained new numbers from the Gallup Healthways Wellbeing Index that suggest that a lot of poor and working class whites who'd voted for Trump in disproportionate numbers have benefited from Obamacare, meaning they likely stand to lose out from its repeal and even its replacement with something that covers far fewer people. So there's no doubt that if Trump does what he promised to do, Trump voters, millions of them, are going to lose health coverage. The real question is, will they blame Trump? I predict no, Pat. And why do I predict no? Well, just look at the experience we have with Obamacare. When Obamacare was enacted, there was this thing called the state Medicaid expansion, and states could decide on their own either to participate in the Medicaid expansion or not to participate. Now, it was really cheap for states. The federal government subsidized most of the state cost for doing that Medicaid expansion, at least in the medium term, and many Republican governors chose not to do it. Just a few examples: Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Wyoming, South Dakota. Very long list. The people in those states without health care who could have had it under the Medicaid expansion aren't, by and large, angry with their Republican governors. They're angry with Obama because, quote, Obamacare is a disaster. So we have experience, Pat. We know that when Republican governors make the decision not to provide health care to certain constituents that would get it through the Medicaid expansion, the Republicans in those states don't blame their governors. By and large, they blame Obama. And there's one other example, which is when Ronald Reagan busted the air traffic controllers union by bringing in strike breakers. This was a big signal that this was going to be a decline for American labor and the American labor movement. And that should have led heartland whites to vote against Ronald Reagan in big numbers, and they didn't. They ended up giving him a 49-state landslide not long thereafter. So I predict, and history tells us, that Trump voters will lose health insurance because of Donald Trump, and they will blame it on, I don't know, some liberal somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason why a Trump supporter would defect from Donald Trump. He even said himself he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and no one would blame him. He wouldn't lose any voters. This is just the latest example of people voting against their own interests because they're misinformed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We've seen this before, and I think that it will not be a political liability for Donald Trump unless media actually gets it together and calls Donald Trump's actions for what they are. We're going to be doing that. I can't speak for anybody else.
GameFly is sort of like Netflix for video games. They have over 8,000 new and classic games for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, Wii, and a bunch of other platforms. And you can play as many games as you want for one monthly fee. And if you find some games you want to keep, you can buy them for a low used price. There's never any due dates or late fees. And our audience can get a free 30-day trial at gameflyoffer.com/TDPS. The games are shipped directly to you with return envelopes included. There's no contracts, and you can rent games through the mobile app. Get the free 30-day trial for the David Pakman Show audience and support our show by going to gameflyoffer.com/TDPS.